வணக்கம். தமிழ் பாரம்பரிய அறக்கட்டளையின் இம்மாத சொற்பொழிவு அம்சமாக இன்றைய சொற்பொழிவை நிகழ்த்தவிருக்கும் R A Narasiah அவர்களும் வந்திருக்கும் உங்கள் அனைவரையும் மிகவும் அன்புடனும் மகிழ்ச்சியுடனும் வரவேற்கிறோம். நிகழ்ச்சியை தொடங்குவதற்கு முன்னால் ஒரு சிறிய அறிவிப்பு. நாளை மறைந்த திரு ஆரிய பத்மநாபன் அவர்களுக்கு ஒரு நினைவாஞ்சலியாக ஒரு கூட்டம் ஏற்பாடு செய்யப்பட்டுள்ளது. அதில் அடையாருக்கும் திருவான்மையூருக்கும் இடைப்பட்ட டாக்டர் ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் நகர் என்ற இடத்தில் சரஸ்வதி வித்யாலயா மெட்ரிகுலேஷன் ஸ்கூல் என்ற பள்ளியில் நடக்கவிருக்கிறது. நாளை மாலை 4:30 மணிக்கு இங்கு வந்திருப்பவர்கள் பெரும்பாலும் பாரதிய அன்பர்களாக இருக்கக்கூடும் என்பதால் இந்த கூடுதல் தகவலை உங்களுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொள்ள விரும்புகிறோம். நாளை மாலை 4:30 மணிக்கு ஆரிய பத்மநாபன் அவர்களுக்கு அவர் சம்பந்தமாகவும் அவர் நினைவை பகிர்ந்து கொள்ளும் விதமாகவும் ஒரு அஞ்சலி கூட்டம் நடைபெறுகிறது. சரஸ்வதி வித்யாலயா மெட்ரிகுலேஷன் ஸ்கூல், டாக்டர் ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் நகர், திருவான்மியூர், சென்னை. நிகழ்ச்சியை தொடங்குவதற்கு முன்னால் தமிழ் பாரம்பரிய அறக்கட்டளை என்ன என்பதை பற்றி இங்கு வழக்கமாக வராமல் இங்கு அபூர்வமாக வந்திருக்கக்கூடியவர்களுக்காக ஒரு மிகச்சிறிய அறிமுகத்தை செய்ய விரும்புகிறோம். தமிழ் பாரம்பரிய அறக்கட்டளை என்பது ஒரு அமைப்பு இல்லை, ஆனால் அமைப்பு இல்லை என்றால் என்ற பொருள். அமைப்பு இல்லை என்பது என்றால் இதற்கு விண்ணப்பங்கள் எதுவும் கிடையாது, படிவங்கள் எதுவும் நீங்கள் பூர்த்தி செய்ய வேண்டாம், எந்த சந்தாவும் கட்ட வேண்டாம். இங்கே ஐராக்கு படிநிலை சம்பந்தமான பொருளாளர், செயலாளர் என்ற விதமான படிநிலைகளும் இல்லை. இங்கு நாமே நமக்காக கூடி செயல்படுவதால் இது அமைப்பு இல்லை. ஆனாலும் இது ஒரு அமைப்பு. எப்படி என்றால் தொடர்ந்த செயல்பாடுகளின் காரணமாகவும் எடுத்துக்கொண்ட விஷயங்களில் சீரியஸாக தீவிரமாக இருப்பதாலும் இது ஒருவித அமைப்பு தான். எனவே ஏற்கனவே வராதவர்களும் கூட மற்றவர்களுக்கு அறிவித்து வர சொல்லலாம். அது ஒன்றுதான் இதில் ஃபார்மாலிட்டி, நடைமுறை. அதற்கு ஒரே ஒரு வழிமுறை உண்டு. இங்கே ஒரு தாள் உங்களிடம் சுற்றறிக்கை விடப்படும். அதில் உங்களுடைய இமெயில் ஐடியையும், அப்படி இல்லை என்றால் உங்களுடைய செல்போன் கைபேசி எண்ணையும் அறிவித்து விடுங்கள். இது ஒன்றுதான் இங்கே செய்யக்கூடிய அமைப்பு ரீதியான ஒன்று. சரி, தமிழ் பாரம்பரிய அறக்கட்டளை எவ்வாறு செய்யப்படுகிறது, ஏன் செய்யப்படுகிறது? நம்முடைய பாரம்பரியம் சம்பந்தமான விஷயங்களையும் சற்றே பாரம்பரியத்திலிருந்து விலகி இருந்தாலும் கூட அறிவு ரீதியான செயல்களையும் உணர்த்துவதற்குமான sensitizing ourselves as well as sensitizing the people who are beyond its grasp. அதுதான் எங்களுடைய ஒரே நோக்கம். இது தொடர்ந்து 4 வருடங்களாக செயல்பட்டு வருகிறது. இதன் முக்கிய நிகழ்வு என்ன என்றால் இன்று நடைபெறுவதுதான். ஒவ்வொரு மாதமும் முதல் சனிக்கிழமை இருந்து மாலை இதே இடத்தில் 5:30 மணிக்கு கூடி ஒவ்வொரு துறையிலும் நிபுணத்துவமோ இல்லை ஆர்வமோ இல்லை அதை பற்றிய ஒரு உற்சாகமோ உள்ள ஒரு அறிஞர் அல்லது அறிஞர் இல்லாவிட்டாலும் அறிஞராக முயல்வர்களையும் அந்த துறையில் அந்த ரீதியை செய்தவர்களை கூடி ஒரு பவர் பாயிண்ட் பிரசன்டேஷன் அல்லது சொற்பொழிவு இல்லை இரண்டும் கலந்த ஒன்று என்பது போன்ற நிகழ்ச்சியின் மூலம் ஒரு புதிய துறைகளில் அல்லது பழைய துறைகளில் நமக்கு தெரியாத ஏரியாவையும் தெரியாத புலன்களையும் தொட்டு காட்டுவதற்காக சென்றிருக்கிறோம். இரண்டாவது சயின்ஸ் செமினார் என்பது ஒன்று. ஒவ்வொரு வருடமும் வரலாற்று ரீதியாக முக்கியம் பெற்ற ஆனால் கவனம் பெறுவதற்குரிய ஒரு இடத்தை தேர்ந்தெடுத்து அதற்கு நேரடியாக சென்று அந்த துறையில் நிபுணத்துவம் பெற்றவர்களுடைய வழிகாட்டுதல் மூலம் அதை ஸ்டடி பண்ணி அதை பற்றிய அறிவை விருத்தி செய்து கொள்வது என்னுடைய இரண்டாவது பகுதி. அதற்கு நேரடியாக எந்தவித முன்தயாரிப்பு இன்றி போகாமல் அதை தொடர்ந்து பல வாரங்கள் பல கோணங்களில் அதை ஆராய்ந்து எங்களுக்கு நாங்களே அறிவூட்டி கொண்டு அதை பல நிபுணர்களின் தகவலுடன் சரிபார்த்து கொண்டு அந்த நிபுணர்களை கூட்டியோ இல்லை இவர்களே நிபுணத்துவமாக பல தகவலை சேகரித்துக் கொண்டோ முன்னால் பயிற்சி அல்லது ட்ரைனிங் அல்லது ப்ரிப்பரேஷன் இவற்றை செய்து கொண்டு இந்த சயின்ஸ் செமினார்களுடைய இடங்களை பார்த்து பிறகு அவற்றையும் டாக்குமெண்டாகவும் புகைப்படங்களாகவும் சேகரித்துக் கொள்வது. மூன்றாவது பேச்சு கச்சேரி என்பது. பேச்சு கச்சேரி என்று சொல்வதன் மூலம் அதனுடைய முக்கியத்துவத்தை குறைத்து விட வேண்டாம். ஒரு சுவாரஸ்யத்துக்காகவே அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு தலைப்பு கொடுத்திருக்கிறோம். அநேகமாக டிசம்பர் மாதம் அந்த பேச்சு கச்சேரி என்ற தலைப்பு 5 நாட்கள் அல்ல 6 நாட்கள் ஒரே ஒரு தலைப்பை ஆழமாக அணுகி பல நிபுணர்களை கூட்டி இதே போன்று பவர் பாயிண்ட் பிரசன்டேஷன் அல்லது சொற்பொழிவு செய்திருக்கு. அது சென்ற டிசம்பர் மாதம் ஸ்ரீரங்கத்தை ஒட்டிய பகுதிகளையும் ஸ்ரீரங்கத்தையும் பொதுவாகவும் கவர் செய்து அதை பற்றி நண்பர்களாகும். அதற்கு முந்தைய வருடங்களில் இந்திய ஓவியம், இந்திய கட்டடக்கலை, இந்திய டெம்பிள் ஆர்ட்ஸ் இதை பற்றின பல்வேறு விதமான நம்முடைய அறிவு ஏற்கனவே விரிவு செய்து கொள்வது போல் அந்த பேச்சு கச்சேரி என்று அமைகிறது. அது ஏதோ ஒரு இடத்தில் சென்னையில் முக்கியமான பகுதியில் ஒவ்வொரு வருடம் எது எங்களுக்கு வாகாக வருகிறதோ அதை அமைத்துக் கொண்டு அதை செயல்படுகிறது. இந்த 3ஐயும் தாண்டி குழந்தைகளுக்காக சம்மர் கேம்ப், கோடைகால பயிற்சி முகாம் என்று குழந்தைகளை கூட்டி இதே விஷயங்களை இவற்றுடன் கூட விஞ்ஞானம், நம்முடைய சூழல்கள், இன்னும் பல்வேறு விஷயங்களையும் சேர்த்துக் கொண்டு அவருக்கு ஏற்ற வகையில் அவர்களுக்கு ஏற்ற இடத்தில் மிகவும் எளிமையாக அவருடைய பார்வையை அந்த திக்கில் செலுத்தும்படி 2 நாட்கள் ஒரு சம்மர் கேம்ப் என்று நடத்துகிறோம். இதுதான் பொதுவாக எங்களுடைய செயல்பாடாக அமைகிறது. இதற்கு நீங்கள் தொடர்ந்து வருவதுடன் மற்றவர்களுடன் எங்களை இணைத்துக் கொள்ளலாம். நான் முன்னே கூறியபடி இதற்கு எந்தவித ஃபார்மாலிட்டியோ நடைமுறைகளோ ஒன்றும் இல்லை. இது இந்த பவர் பாயிண்ட் பிரசன்டேஷனில் தென்படும் இந்த தலைப்பில் திரு R A Narasiah அவர்கள் பேசவிருக்கிறார். அவர் ஏற்கனவே இங்கே 2 மணிகளுக்கு மேல் பேசியிருப்பதால் இங்கு வந்திருப்பவர்களுக்கு அவரை பற்றி அறிமுகம் தேவையில்லை. இருந்தாலும் மரியாதை கருதி மட்டும் மிகச்சில வார்த்தைகளில் அறிமுகத்தை முடித்துக் கொண்டு அவரை பேச அளிப்போம். R A Narasiah சமீப காலத்தில் மிக சீரியஸாக இருக்கக்கூடிய இதழ்களில் பாரம்பரியம் சம்பந்தமான கட்டுரைகள் எழுதி வருவதால் அவர் பாரம்பரிய ஹெரிட்டேஜ் எக்ஸ்பர்ட் என்றோ ஹெரிட்டேஜ் எந்தூசியாஸ்ட் என்றோ பரவலாக அறியப்பட்டார். ஆனால் என்னை போன்ற வயதானவர்களுக்கு மிக சிறு வயதிலேயே அவர் சிறந்த சிறுகதை ஆசிரியராகத்தான் அறிமுகமானார். தமிழில் மிகச்சிறந்த சிறுகதை படித்தவர்களில் அவருக்கு ஒரு இடம் உண்டு. ஆரம்ப காலத்திலேயே ஆழ்ந்த விளைவில் முத்திரை கதைகள் எழுதியிருக்கிறார், சில நாவல்கள் எழுதியிருக்கிறார். அவற்றில் சுரணா பேரு என்பது ஒரு முக்கியமான குறிப்பிடத்தக்க நாவலாகும். ஆனால் அடிப்படையில் இந்த துறைகளுக்கு சிறிதும் சம்பந்தம் இல்லாமல் படிப்பின் ரீதியாக பார்த்தால் அவர் கடல்சார் பொறியியலாளர், இந்திய கடற்படையில் மிக முக்கியமான பொறுப்புகளை வகித்து நம்முடைய பாதுகாப்பு சம்பந்தமான சில போர்களில் நேரடியாகவும் மறைமுகமாகவும் கூட அவர் பங்கு பெற்றிருக்கிறார். கடலோடிகள் என்ற புத்தகம் கூட அவருடைய கடல் வழி செயல்களை பற்றின அனுபவங்களின் திரட்டாக அமைந்திருக்கின்ற ஒரு புத்தகமாகும். அப்புறம் கடல் வழி வாணிகம் என்று மரைன் காமெண்ட்ஸ், அந்த மரைன் ட்ரேடை பற்றி ஒரு விரிவான புத்தகங்கள் எழுதியிருக்கிறார். இவ்வளவு பெரிய பெருமைகளுக்கு சொந்தக்காரராக இருந்தாலும் கூட அவர் இப்பொழுதுமே நம்மில் ஒருவராக எளிமையாக கலந்து பழகக்கூடியவர். ஆனாலும் கூட நான் இவற்றையெல்லாம் சொன்னதையும் தாண்டி கூட அவருக்கு பிடித்தமான ஒன்று என்றால் அவர் பாரதி என்பவர். முதலும் கடைசியுமாக கவிஞர் சுப்பிரமணிய பாரதியின் மிக ஆழ்ந்த அன்பர். அந்த அன்பர்களுடன் மாறாத பிணைப்பும் தொடர்பும் இந்தளவும் கொண்டிருக்கிறார். எனவே அவரை உங்கள் சார்பாக நம்முடைய இன்றைய உரையாற்றும்படி அழைக்கிறேன். எனது வணக்கம்.
இன்றைய தலைப்பில் பேசப்போவது ஹிஸ்டரி ஆஃப் சவுத் இந்தியா during colonial rule as gleaned from indigenous records and folklore. ஏனென்றால் நாம் பேசிக்கொண்டு எப்பொழுதுமே நம் மற்ற ஆங்கிலேயர்கள் பேசும் அவர்கள் எழுதியிருக்கிற சரித்திரத்தை தான் நாம் சான்றாக காட்டுகிறோம் ஒழிய நமது மொழி சான்றத்தை நாம் காட்டுவதில்லை. அதை சற்று அறிவு கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்பதுதான் இந்த இன்றைய மாலை பொழுதில் பேச்சும் நோக்கம். தென்னகத்து மொழி சான்றுகள் ஆவணங்களாகவும் வெகுஜன இலக்கியமாகவும் அது முக்கியமாக இருந்திருக்கின்றன. அவற்றை அதிகமாக யாரும் பார்ப்பதில்லை. Normally quoted English sources are history of Madras, முதல் புத்தகம் எழுதப்பட்ட first book, Tall Boys எழுதியது. இரண்டாவது Vestiges of Old Madras, volume of 4 volumes, written by Henry Harrison Love. மூன்றாவது other noting of English authors, standard history books, letters from English ladies. Lot of letters from English ladies are available, from which we can read a lot of history of colonial Madras. And then we have tombstone inscription. This is one of the most important things, because almost every Englishman who died in this area, there was an inscription for himself, and they are all available, which are very base of our history. Then the essays are there, reference from records, archives, everything is there. But what are the indigenous literature? Why do we not quote very ordinary indigenous literature? In Sanskrit, there is a great work called Sarvadeva Vilasa and Champu, Anandaranga Champu, and in Telugu, Anandaranga Champu. In Tamil, Anandaranga Pillai diaries and local folklore in poetry form. Some of them may not be highly grammatical. Even this Sarvadeva Vilasa is not, in Sanskrit, is not highly grammatical. It is a very, very ordinary Sanskrit written by somebody whose name is not known, but he says somewhere, I am son of Suri, so his father's name was Suri, that much only we know. Other Sanskrit literature available, Anumati Parinya, allegorical play by Narasimha. This manuscript is even now available in Government Oriental Manuscript Library. Ananda Brahma Vidya Vilasa by Varadaraja, a description of Chitrai festival in Patsadi temple. One complete book talking about the Chitra festival in Patsadi temple. In fact, it gives almost everything that is done during those days in the temple. Joshi Chintamani, written by Raghavan. This Raghavan is a legend by himself. You will be surprised to know this Raghavan who wrote Joshi Chintamani is called Chintamani Raghavan. He was a water boy in Pepys's time in the meteorological department, just a water boy. And reticuli was being tracked by the meteorologists, which they were finding it very difficult. But this water carrier, whenever Pepys was out or those meteorologists were not available, he started tracing these reticuli and he found out exactly what was happening. And this, when he recorded, the English gentleman then took it and published it, and also a water boy was given FRAS, Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, and afterwards he wrote this Joshi Chintamani, which has been quoted by many people, in which all about Madras is told. Not many people even know that the water carrier could be given there, whereas our scientists, even their own fellow scientists working, they may copy it and may not even mention their name, whereas the Englishman was good enough to get him FRAS, that made him a fellow of the Royal Government who had no education of any kind. So that is written by this Raghavan. And this Sarvadeva Vilasa was available in Adyar Library, even now it is available in 86 palm leaves in Grantha manuscript. It was published by Dr. B. Raghavan. In English, translated also by him. It was also published by him in Sanskrit as well. But according to him, this is not one of those literary Sanskrit book, but written by ordinary spoken Sanskrit of those days. The name Sarvadeva Vilasa means all gods residing place, or whatever, you can take it as all the gods are residing in this place. That is Chennapatnam. But it also meant that the people who were like gods, all those lords who were supporting the poets, writers and artists and all those people, were also like gods, and they resided in this Chennapatnam. Vilasa is an address actually for them. It is in the form of dialogue between two Sanskrit pandits called Vivekin and Adivivekin. One Buddhisali, one Mahabuddhisali. Basically, whole this Sarvadeva Vilasa is a dialogue. completely between these two and how they discuss. During their discussion, we come to know of all the things that is happening. But unfortunately, this belongs to 18th century, not before 18th century. So we do not, in fact, no literature, indigenous literature of any kind is available prior to that. There may be, because we do not know about it if it is existing. They discuss how scholars can derive benefit from the big people of the city. Their main purpose is how scholars can derive benefit from the people who are lords here, who are big prabhus here. That is all about it. And on the Colonial, it is all about it, like even that Kavi who came, who could not get, and he was very good, Pombaku, Mary, Chandana, and the Single, Illarme, Prabhu Nokitan, and they start their trip from the town wall in the north at the garden house of Kaligara. This is very important because town wall is mentioned here. Town wall is mentioned in Sanskrit as prakara. So we assume it is town wall. If you go to Central Station, next to Central Station there is a road called Wall Tax Road. That Wall Tax Road got its name because of a wall that was purported to be built by taking a special tax from the residents. The tax was levied according to the income of the individuals, and collecting the tax they built a wall to protect the city. But at that point of time, the control was shifted to Calcutta, and Calcutta government did not allow Madras government to collect the tax. It was dropped. But a portion of wall was built. Even now you can see a portion of wall. In fact, there are some small pigeonholes in which it was called to be cells. I do not know if they were really cells. There were many, prisoners used to put there in rows. So this wall was called Prakara. He starts from there. You can see Kalinga Raja is the man of the place. And Love mentions his name as Kolingarai, C-O-L-I-N-G. So they start the trip from town wall there, that means northernmost part, and travel down south with the lords and prabhus who are going all over. Who are the scholars mentioned in this? The Sarvadeva Vilasa records that many Sanskrit scholars were supported in Chennapuri. In Sanskrit it is written as Chennapuri. Who were they? One Pattabhirama. He was called Samasta Sastra Nipuna. He was a great Sastra Nipuna. Giriyappa, Mahavidwan. They were all titles. It is not known as once Goku was telling one day that Pallavas had 130 titles, and even today our point kings have many titles. I think this is started from that time only. Giriyappa was Mahavidwan. Dharma Shiva was Saiva Agama, that is in Saiva Agama he was the specialist. And Venkatanatha, who was Sarva Sastranya Rath, that is the great man of Sarva Sastra. Though none of the above are known in the Sanskrit literary world of India, outside Madras they were not known. That means they were all small figures, but here they were big. The narrators themselves took part in the Sadas at Kalasa in both Sanskrit and Telugu. Those days there used to be Sadasas conducted, and in the Sadas these scholars will come and argue their cases out. And that was in Kalasai, a place called Kalasai. Kalasai is there in Madras. I will show you where it is. The city personalities. Who were these Prabhus and Lords who were supporting all these people? First was Vedachala. Now of course, tracing back, they say this Vedachala Mudaliyar's great son is saying Bhaktavatsala Mudaliyar. They say, I don't know how far it is true. But anyway, he is Mudaliyar family, Vedachala. These scholars accompany Vedachala to his place Kalasa. Now it is called Thotikale. In a place called Thotikale, which is just north of Madras, where festival of Chidambareswara takes place. This Vedachala was the Dharmakata of Chidambareswara temple there, and there he used to conduct the sadhas, and all people used to gather there. Next day, Vedachala accompanied by Sriranga, there was another gentleman called Sriranga and Devanayaka. Devanayaka is referred to by love. I have referred in the book Devi Nayakam. He says Devi Nayakam. Actually it is Devanayaka and Kalinga Raja for a rhyme. And how do they go for a ride? When they go for a ride, either they go on elephants or on horses, accompanied by not only courtesans but also some English ladies, because it was necessary to prove their might that they must be accompanied by some English ladies also. This was all part of the joke then. A sadas is held where scholars are honoured. That is why all these scholars are there, because they are honoured after the sadas is over. Devanayaka invites his scholars to Nungampakkam where they visit Agasthyeswara temple. This Devanayaka is a Vaishnavi, but he was the patron of Nungampakkam Agasthyeswara temple. Even now it is existing there. They were all taken to the temple. Almost all temples had, and even now you can see the vestiges of it by a kind of mandapam and a place to sit in front like Kapaleswara temple or Patsani temple. You can see such thing where sadhusas used to be held, where regular arguments and discussions used to take place in Sanskrit and Tamil, and winners and big scholars used to be rewarded. So Devanayaka invites the scholars to Nungampakkam where they visit Agasthyeswara temple. The patrons then enjoy a bath in the tank there. There was a huge tank. Attend a scholarly disputation with one Mishra. Seshadri Sastri was down there. There was one Mishra, one North Indian who was a Sanskrit scholar. He used to engage them on arguments. And Seshadri Sastri was another Sanskrit scholar who was sitting as a referee there, who used to declare who is the winner and all that. Of course, there is no question of any dispute, because what he says is final about it. And Vedachala Totikalai. Since Vedachala has been mentioned on more occasions and praised as equal to Shiva of Vedagiri, Dr. Raghavan traced the family and was able to meet a descendant, T.V. Abhirami Mudaliar, who had a portrait of Vedachala mentioned in the composition. Dr. Raghavan actually went around and found out. He was responsible for unearthing this document. Guide to the records of the Madras district from 1719 to 1835 mentions. In fact, you can see it in the net. They are all available. I also saw it. It mentions Vedachala as son of Kesav Mudaliar. In fact, you can build up Kesav Mudaliar, Vedachala Mudaliar, and his sons, and then one T.V. Abhirami Mudaliar, and below that comes to Veda, right up to down below to all the Middle East of that time. Inside the fort, this is very important thing, because inside the fort there were some streets. Now we know James Street, Clive Street and all that. There was a street named Chevana Skanda Vigneswara Veedi inside the fort, and he lived there. You know, it used to be believed that inside the fort no Indians lived. Indians did live there, and they possessed houses. And this street he named after Chevana Skanda Vigneswara Veedi. And that house was there, and Dr. Pryor in his map shows that there are some Indians living inside the fort. Vedachala was one of the richest merchants of those days. Vedachala's retinue, when he goes, how does he go? Sarvadeva Vilasa explains. On the elephant, along with him was the great musician Dubashi. When Dubashi was there, he was a great singer. He was sitting next to him on the elephant. That means he must have been very great, because nobody is allowed to ride with him and this thing. But next to him on a horse was Srinivasachari. What was his title? Gana Kala Vistad, I don't know what it is. Mr. Balu, you must tell what it is. Vistad Mati Srinivasa on a horse. He was coming on a horse. And Dubashi, according to Dr. Raghavan, could be Pallavi Dubashi here, who lived during that period, whose maternal grandfather was named Venkatstupai. They were all great Mahavidwans, you know. So naturally they are all known, and Dr. Raghavan, as you know, is almost an authority in Carnatic music, and he could be wrong. Venkatramana, son of Sunti Subba, is mentioned there. Kana, Vidya, Hamsa, Darsa, and Venkatramana are described as tigers of music. They are all mentioned as some big people. Who is this Sunti Subba was also there? He belongs to that Sunti family. Dr. Raghavan identifies the latter as Sunti Venkatramanaya, Guru of great Tyagaraja himself. Sunti Venkatramanaya, you know that family. So you can go back and see that was a great especially when you see 18th century, if you see, it produced the maximum number of musicians and scholars then. 1772, Shyama Shastri was born. 1777, Tyagaraja was born. 1785, Swami Dikshita was born. So all these people were born in Tiruvallur. And all these people had to come one time or other to Madras to do something to better themselves. And all happened in that 18th century, small period of time. So there was something definitely attached to that period of time when music and art were given maximum importance. Occurrences on the way, when they were riding, what was happening? Sri Lanka in procession in Toyadri. Toyadri is the name which is today known as Tirunir Malai, a temple, with a huge retinue where a new temple car is commissioned and pandits are honored. One new temple car is commissioned and immediately, whenever an occasion arises like temple car or a new Kumbhabhishekam or anything, lot of scholars are honored. So everybody comes there. Then they proceed to Tiruvattriyur, where they meet Lingappa. An elaborate description about the temple is given. Lingappa Chetty, please don't confuse with the Lingappa Chetty street of that Lingappa Chetty is different from this Lingappa Chetty. Lingappa, an elaborate description about the temple is given there. From here they proceed to Tiruvallikedi through the Mahapuri. This is an important point which comes. I was also writing actually for about 2 days. I was worried about this word Mahapuri, how it came. From here they proceed to Tiruvallikedi through Mahapuri. There on Monday, Kalingaraja holds big sadhas in Tiruvallikedi. What is Mahapuri? Mahapuri is big city, as we know. But when he is inside the city, why should he call a place as Mahapuri? This was known during company period as the Great Chowdhury Plain. Great Chowdhury Plain extended from Fort to almost near Senate Road, like that entire area was Great Chowdhury Plain. So this could be Mahapuri. Or alternately, some other place which was known as big city or whatever it was. Trustee Anna Sami is inscribed. Anna Sami was the man who was trustee of Tiruvallikedi Pathsali temple. And there, about him, there is a lot of written things are there. After a bath in the temple tank, they move on. Please don't mistake Tiruvallikedi temple tank as the temple tank as on today. No, it was south of it. The temple tank, what is today, is not the original temple tank where they took bath, which was known as Kairavani. Kaira means lilies, and Kairavani is Alikedi. So Alikedi was south of this today's tank, and that was much bigger tank. And that was, I believe, a very good water tank. People used to take bath there. Some more names appear in this. Gopala, he built the Shiva temple. Makka Shanmukha, Nattu Arunachala. Nattu could be a surname for Mudaliya or Sarajan Brahmins, like Nayogis of Telugu origin. These were normally the revenue officials and always sported moustache. Here I want to give a small example of how it came about as Nattu. Nattu is the word which turned out to be Nattar later on, who owns or who has. But how Nattu could have been Nayogis? Because I happen to be myself an Orwellian Nayogi, so I can say little authoritatively. After quoting Bamdi Party Protestor Rao, who was an IAS officer who has done a lot of research on the subcastes of Telugu Brahmins, he says originally when Vaidyantic Brahmins shifted to now the place called Telangana in that area, they divided themselves into two groups, secular and non-secular. Secular group divided itself into two. One was called Golconda Vyaparilu, another was called Orwellian Nayogis. And we all belong to Orwellian Nayogis cause. Maybe we all came from there during Mike's period because we are settlers in Madurai. I hope so. Maybe I am wrong, I do not know. So, and these Brahmins always quoted moustache because they have to show their revenue officials. Kota Krishna, even though Kota sometimes is supplied to dwellers, they are Kovatis actually. Venkatachala, trustee of Kachapariswara temple, which is also there. One Pattabhirama is eulogized as equal to God Dakshinamurti. I don't know who is this Pattabhirama because couldn't find any details about him. One Giriyappa, an officer under the English. Giriyappa is mentioned even by love because he was a translator, he was a regular official. But when they are going like this, they have to exhibit their prosperity. They have to show how big they are. How will they show? In all public functions, they were accompanied by mistresses. There is one problem with any Indian king or Indian lord is, unless he is accompanied by mistresses other than his wife, his importance is not felt. They do not know it is from Sangam time. It is from Sangam time. And they were highly talented courtesans. And you know, 18th century is the start of decline of Devadasi system. When Devadasis became almost a disputed community, before that they were all well-known community of some great people. And who were they? Kalidaraya's mistress was Narayani. Even now she is mentioned all over. Expert in erotic games and great singer. She was given Gana Kaladi Veera. Sriranga's mistress was Manka. Foremost of the courtesans, again good in singing an erotic art. Sangeeta, Sastra, Abhinayati, Punya. That was her title. And Vedasala's mistress was Meenakshi. Actually, Meenakshi's name is, you can find Meenakshi's name in many places. Raghavan feels her daughters were taught by Pattanam Subramaniya Iyer. Devanayaka's mistress was like goddess. And they all used to have Jalakriyada in this tank. You know what is Jalakriyada? You know, with these ladies, they used to take bath and enjoy themselves with many ladies supporting them and they are taking bath. That Jalakriyada was going on. So it is not, I wanted to prove it that it is not only in 18th century, it started from 3rd century itself. What Purananuru says, Yamanar Nankalam Tanda Tangamai Teral Potsai Punaigalanti Endinal Bonduri Magalin Madupa Magisirantu. That is what Akira writes about Nammar in Purana. That is, Yamanar means Heri Paparinas, Nankalam, when they brought that wine in their beautiful Ambari jars. Teral is wine. Ponsai Punaigalanti Endinal Bonduri Magalin Madupa. That ladies must give, Yamana ladies will come and give that wine and he will drink. And that was the Rasaki they were doing. Not much difference. Yamanaral Nalla Kupil Kodu, Nalla Manamudaya Maduvai Kodkalatil, only a Malaya in the mother, the mother to the Indian fire. He is the king. So it was nothing new. And musical terminology was there. The text mentions from Sahitya, Vama, Kirtana, Tana and Alapana, showing that the writer was fully conversant with musicality. The instruments mentioned and not found in other literature of the time are Suryavadya and Himamshuvadya or Sandhyavadya. In fact, it is wrongly written in Tamil as Surya Pirai and Chandra Pirai. It should be written as Surya Parai and Chandra Parai because Parai means the drums. It also mentions some special instruments, Vadya Viseshas, that could be Western instruments. When we come to that, I will explain why these Vadya Viseshas came. Visesha Vadyas actually. He says Vadya Viseshas, some special instruments which were not till then known. So Devanayaka Mudaliyar is this gentleman, his portrait is available even today in Agasteswara temple. As you can see, he is sporting a Nama. That means he was a regular Vaishnava. But he was in charge of Agasteswara temple. The picture hangs in the temple. The picture hangs in the temple he founded at Nungambakam. Agasteswara temple for Shiva, though he was a staunch Vaishnava. There is a Madras district record entry dated June 6. I have seen it in the net. His signature appears as Devi Nayagam. Actually, Devanayaka Mudaliyar. If you see, even in Lau's book, I have seen merchants in the port. Some of the Indian merchants were well off, lived inside the port. One Singanna, one Ramanappa, Venkatrami Chetty, Bolingaroy executor, Ranga Pillai, Ganapati, Venkatnarayan, and Lingappa Chetty. These are all there in his Vestiges of Paul Madras. In his book, you can see straight away that Singanna possessed 2 houses, and here somebody possessed, Rangaya Pillai possessed 3 houses. This Ranga Pillai could be Anandaranga Pillai. possess 3 houses, or Anandaranga's father or whoever it was, Tiruvettu. And here there is another series, this Venkatnarayan who had 2 houses. Value of houses are given. This is 1860. Value of houses are given. How many pagodas there were? Each pagoda is about 3 rupees. So you can see they were all inside the houses, inside the fort. And normally it was believed that inside the fort only Europeans live. No. But this states the topography of the town of Chennapuri is clear from the text. The wall which has historic importance is indicated as Prakara. That is about the wall tags I was talking about. The places are indicated in the text as Viksharanya, that is Thiruvellu, Tottikkalai, Kalasai, Nungapuri. Nungampakkam is mentioned as Nungapuri. Toyadri, Tirunelmalai is mentioned as Toyadri. Adipuri, Tiruvattur. Adipuri is in name of Tiruvattur, not now, even in much earlier time, it was known as Adipuri. Adipuri was known to be, in fact, the Tiruvattur, if you know, in the Tondai Mandalam area, largest number of inscriptions are in Tiruvattur temple only. And then Navasthala. There is Prabhala Nagari is also mentioned. That is Pavalakkarate, Paral Merchant Street. Prabhala Nagari. Navasthala. Navasthala is new place. It could be Pudupakkam or Pudupet as known now, or it could be even Puducherry. Dr. Raghavan feels the last mention could be Puducherry. But I myself feel, because since he is talking about Chennai area only, this could be Pudupakkam or Pudupet, what we call now as Navasthala. Now places and people. Subramanya Muni of Kattumannar Koil composed Kalasai Kovai. Tottikkalai Subramanya Kalasai Kovai is available now. A Tamil work belonging to 18th century. 2 of his works were dated to 1786 and 1799. Published by Dr. U.V. Swaminathan. It is available in UBS library at Seaton. In the Kalasai Kovai, Subramanya Muni mentions about his patrons Kesava Mudaliyar and Vedachara. In that work, his names are mentioned. The concern of author. Why does he write this? What is this? What is the reason of writing this? It is very simple. You see, if you see how indigenous community responded to a Western onslaught, it is all about it. How we responded. Why a community which was one of the best civilized societies of the world, having laws for 13 centuries without depending on anybody, after 13 centuries lost its glory and bowed down to a society which came from fringes of civilization, that is Western society, who were not that civilized, and bowed to them. Why? This has been worrying me all the time. Why did this community, the community of this country, India, bow to a community which was not called superior in any way? The whole thing started when 1498, May 22nd, when Vasco da Gama landed in Colonial. The world changed, and the world has never been same again. Why did it happen? What was the necessity for people to change? So there is a concern of this author. This author is concerned why we are doing like this. That is the argument between Vivekan and Ativivekan. And Vivekan says all these things, Ativivekan says why? That person is answered here. The protagonists were worried that Kunas would take over with their armed soldiers. Kunas were white men. In fact, they were called Svetamukhas. Svetamukhas are like Red Indians called Englishmen when they came to America as pale face. Same pale face. They were white faced people. Svetamukhas are going to take over us. How? With their soldiers. Vivekan is worried. But now Ativivekan says, no, don't worry. They were often worried how the locals were tolerating the Gunas. Gunas are villagers, those who are below their level. The low-born foreigners were destroying the Varnashrama Dharma and creating a social disorder. Please don't jump into the conclusion that it is just because he says Varnashrama Dharma, it is something to do with the Aryan Dravidian thing. No, it is the prevalent thing. We must always go by time and space when we read history. At that point of time, that the foreigners were coming and destroying the Varnashram Dharma was a concern. Now if you look at it from this point of time, it may look altogether different, it may give a different meaning also. We should do that. We make a mistake of doing that often. It is true that local bigwigs like Anandaranga Pillai, but they were not as though that somebody did not oppose. Anandaranga Pillai opposed. He questioned the authority. In fact, there was one Masilamani Madaliya who went to court and stood against the orders of Board of Revenue. When the Board of Revenue gave an order, he said, I will not obey, I will go to court and fight against it. He said, he could do it. Anandaranga Pillai confronted the colonial authority by proceeding against it in the Supreme Court. January 18, the proceedings are all available now with us. He questioned the authority of the company to rule over the temples. His question is the same as what Chidambaram will question the government of Tamil Nadu. But what right have you got to take over my temple? What right did the British have to take over the Parthsarthi temple to start with? They did not have the right. They did not want. It is fantastic to know the amazing ease with which the English could do all these things because of our stupidity, not because of their valor or anything. Because of Vadagalai Tengalai problem in Parthsarthi temple, the governor had to give an order and say, Parthsarthi looking towards east belongs to Tengalai and Adali Singer looking towards west belongs to Vadagalai. And they followed. Why will they not take over? They took over. He questioned the authority of the company to rule over the temple. Ananda Ranga Pillai fought against the machinizations of Midam, Dupleix, and proved right. Dupleix' wife wanted to destroy the temple one by one. And he fought against it. That Anandaranga Pillai diary, you can read the whole thing, you know how he did. In fact, he stood against the destruction of temple and he was yet loyal to the governor. In one place he writes, I would have managed the affairs of Madras better than the governor. 1746, French took over Madras. 1749, by Aila-Chapal Treaty, they left. So 3 years it was under French. If there was no treaty of Aila-Chapal, you and I will be not speaking in English but in French today. You see? But that happened. But when this happened, Anandaranga Pillai said to Dupleix, had you given the authority to me, I would have managed better than you this place. He said that. Others mentioned of Manali Venkatakrishna, son of Muthukrishna Madaliya. He was originally named Chennaiya, Venkatakrishna. After his death in 1817, there were disputes about the trusteeship of the town temple. Before going further, we can say about Manali Muthukrishna Madaliya. After the French siege was over, originally built by Beri Timmanna Nagapattan in 1640s, where that was the temple of Chenna Kesava Perumal temple, standing where the High Court stands today. It was destroyed and the High Court was built. Before the High Court, it was a field where a lot of inscriptions were there. It was a tomb, tombs were also there. They were all destroyed and those inscriptions were brought and put in St. Mary's Church inside the fort. Now, at that point of time, after the French siege was over, during Lord Bigot, who was the governor, was one of the saddest governor of Madras because he had two sessions. The second session when he came, he was jailed and he died in the jail. Very bad death too. And when he died, they threw him off. After about 80 years, his inscription was found and it is now available in St. Mary's Church. Now, during his time, Manali Muthukrishna Madaliya was the Dubashi. As I said sometime once before, here, Dubashi, one who knew two bhashas have become Dubashis, who knew English as well as Tamil. But most of them knew Telugu as well as Tamil. Now, Manali Muthukrishna Madaliya was a patron of music and patron of many things. We will find later also. But at this point of time, we can see this much. That there was one Paramayeri Ramasamy Dikshita in the Tanjore area who could not support his family. In fact, he got 4 children after 40th year. That is, this Ramaswamy Dikshitar's son, Muthuswamy Dikshitar, Baluswamy Dikshitar, Chinnaswamy Dikshitar, and Balamba. These are the 4 children of him. He could not support them. They were all great musicians. Ramaswamy Sastri is the one who introduced Hamsadhvani Raga in Carnatic music. Before that, there was no Hamsadhvani Raga. He introduced Hamsadhvani Raga. And it is Muthuswamy Dikshitar who composed Vatapi Ganapati in that Raga, which is sung all over. Now you can see that family of that strength, you know. They were without food. Manali Muthukrishna Manaliya, who built 2 temples, though Chennakesava Perumal is mentioned even in Dr. Pryor's map of 1640, that was destroyed. The new temples were built later in the place where now they exist, Chennakesava Perumal temple and Chenna Mallakeswara temple. Both are built by this Manali Muthukrishna Manaliya. By a place given by the company, by a money given by the company, including the money he put in. And that Manali Muthukrishna Manaliya, he went and brought this Dikshitar family wholesale from Tanjore to Madras and set them right. And I have said this before, I am saying it once again. At that point of time, Carnatic music did not have a proper Pakkavarti. Veena was a side instrument. But Veena was a plucking instrument. It was not suitable for a vocalist to follow a vocalist. And Veena by itself was an independent instrument which could be played for hours together, like Veena Dhanammal could do. So they were looking for some instrument which could be played along with the Carnatic music, which at that time was not there. We did not have a bow instrument except a guitar or something like that. Plucking instruments we had. So for this bow instrument they were looking for, and Muthuswamy Dikshitar's younger brother, he went and saw, he was taken by this Venkatakrishna, son of Muthukrishna, and introduced to the English band where they were playing violin. He picked up violin, he learned violin and introduced violin, and from that time we have violin as the Pakkavarti for Carnatic music. Otherwise we would not have it at all.
What about harmonium?
Harmonium is an English instrument totally. Any of those instruments, key instruments were not there at all. We didn't have any key instrument. If we had any wind instrument, they were all like blowing instruments only, like Nadastram and various flute and things. But we did not have any key instruments as such. All key instruments come from English notations. And Muthukrishna, and Muthukrishna Manaliya and Swami Dikshitar, he was the first one to create English notes. As you know that Santamu is the English, God Save King, he put it in English note form also. After this man's death, there was disputes about the trustee of town temple also. Ramanappa is mentioned. One Ramanappa is mentioned who owned a house inside the court. Kolla Ramanappa Chetty is full name. He built the Kotwal market. What is known as Kotwal? Kotwal is police post. Kotwal market and the Kanyaka Parameswari temple, which is still existing from his own time. He owned a house inside the court as we saw earlier. In addition, a property is named as belonging to him in the map 1822 in Love's book in page so you can find it. Originally it belonged to Colonel Caldwell. He purchased it from Caldwell. That means he was richer than that man. And then there is another, this one called Sarvadeva Vilasa. Then the other book available is Vishwagunadars Champu. Champu Kavya in Sanskrit is something which goes by prose and poetry. Prose and poetry. A poetic composition by Venkatacharyam of Arasanapalli near Kanchipuram is in the form of prose and verse. It is also a dialogue between two Gandharvas, Krishanu and Vishwavas. In fact, one is a pessimist, one is an optimist. And they are flying from Kashmir. They are coming by aerial route from Kashmir, come down. But in Madras they spend time, and that portion, this Vishwagunadars talks about. They fly over Dravida Desa, and as they travel south, they see Tiruvalur and Lord Veeraraghavan. And Veeraraghavan Perumal temple, has its own, it's in Kaladipetta now, which is actually Kaladipetta. When Kalad was governor, his aide was Veeraraghavan, who used to go to Kanchipuram to pray. And once when he was very late, caller asked him, why are you late? He said, I am going to Kanchipuram and unless I see Perumal, I will not be happy. He said, you say so much about your Perumal, tell me what your Perumal is doing right now. So this man closed his eyes, he said, my God, his Ratha is stuck in a pit, he said. And this man sent his men in horse to find out what happened. And they found at that point of time, the chariot was stuck in the pit. So he was so much impressed by him. He said, in my expenditure, I will build the Veeraraghavan Perumal temple here. You don't have to go to Kanchipuram anymore, you can pray here. Collar. And Collarpeta is named after him, though we call it Collarpeta. And then on to Sriperumbudur. They go from there to Sriperumbudur, and from there to Tiruvallikeni, where they see Kairavani. Kaira, as I told you, in Sanskrit is Ali, lily. So Kairavani is Allikeni. The gist of the dialogue in this book is the fault finder, that is, Pepys talks ill of the foreigners. This is an important aspect which we should consider. The then Madras, how they spoil the culture and bring changes in others. The pessimist says these English fellows are spoiling the culture. The optimist says that the Huns did not destroy the temple and loot the city. This is a very important thing. The time is 18th century. Up to 13th century there was no problem. 14th century, 1360 or 14, and Malik Batur came to south, he started destroying all the temples on the way. Srirangam, Madurai temple, everything, and looting and destroying was their main business. So the optimist said, why are you talking ill of them? They have not destroyed any temple, they have not done anything. In fact, they are helping us to run the temple better. So think of good things also. So probably he thought of the Muslims who had plundered the shrine. He even talks about the administration and based on their sense of justice. He talks about administration. The optimist talks about administration. They brought in a system. Now they are having a system. We didn't never had a system. And they got a sense of justice. Probably their references to the early right-hand, left-hand cause, which I talked elaborately earlier, and disposal of the case in the court in 1652. All those things are in the mind of the optimist. Now we come to Anandaranga Champu. Anandaranga Champu is a Champu written on the Anandaranga Pillai, who maintained the diaries. As we all know, the only diarist in India, you can say, who maintained the diary very, very meticulously on all the days without dropping a single day. Written by Srinivasachari, this Anandaranga Champu, who was patronized by Anandaranga Pillai. Composed the work when Anandaranga Pillai was at his height of power and influence, and is a contemporary eyewitness account of some of the events mentioned there. The work has been critically edited by Dr. Raghavan with an excellent English introduction available now. Pillai belonged to the Yadava family, though he was called Pillai Yadava actually, and lived at Ayanapuram near Perambur. Perambur was called later, we call it Perambur. It is not Perambur, it is Pirambur, but everybody says it Perambur, it has come to be Perambur. Vetra in Sanskrit means canes. Cane is Pirambur. So a lot of Pirambur used to be available. But now English came here and set up a Ratan Bazaar also. Ratan is cane. So Ratan Bazaar is cane bazaar, which they set up. So he was an Ayanapuram originally. Kasturi Rangayya என்ற தெலுங்கு கவிஞர் ஆனந்தரங்க பிள்ளை மீது ஆனந்தரங்க ராட்சந்தகம் என்னும் தெலுங்கு நூல் ஒன்றை ஏற்றியிருக்கிறார். இது பண்ணோடு பாடக்கூடியது. நடனமாக பலருக்கு அவை கற்பிக்கப்பட்டன. They used to dance to this. கிபி 1746 ஆண்டில் ஆனந்தரங்க பிள்ளையின் சபையில் அரங்கேற்றப்பட்டது. ஆனந்தரங்க சபை. This was actually அப்போதைய நடனங்கள் பாட்டுகளை பாடி நடனம் புரிந்தனர். That is Anandaranga Rajchandram. These two works describe Pillai's origin and life. From these two works only we find out. As you know, Anandaranga Pillai diaries were found much later. They would have gone, disappeared unfortunately, but anyway, they are available to us. Ranga's ancestor shifted to Vetra. Vetra is cane, cane is Pirambur. So it was called Pirambur. Hence the name Pirambur, now called Pirambur. Ratan, a climbing plant of form of tropical Asia, long, tough, slender stems, that is Pirambur. This Perambur later was gifted along with four other villages to English by Nawab Akka according to Love's Portuguese later. The Champu declares that Thiruvenkada, father of Pillai, lived amidst the merchants which would be inside the fort. Which is there I showed you in the thing on Ranga, what 3 houses he owned. Love's list shows one of the occupants as Ranga Pillai who owned these 3 houses. Shifting to Navapura. Navapura is, according to this, is Puducherry. Pondicherry was never a name for it, it was always a Puducherry. Pondicherry was later given by French. The Champu says that Naiya Pillai, Thiruvenkada's brother-in-law, was the chief native agency in Navapura, that is in Puducherry. But he fell in ill repute. At his suggestion, the family shifted to Puducherry. Herbert was the governor who charged Naiya Pillai and imprisoned him where he went to his death. Naiya Pillai died there in the prison. Naiya Pillai's son Guruva and Thiruvenkada fled to Madras, and then Guru went to France via England. Guru became a Christian also later. Guru became a Christian and returned to Puducherry, invited by Herbert's successor. Later, Guru died issueless in 1724 and Thiruvenkada in 1756. In September that year, Lenoid became the governor and took Anandaranga in the place of his father. It was then Anandaranga went from Madras to Pondicherry. The Champu elaborates Pillai's marriage, etc. How his marriage was conducted. Anandaranga was instrumental in establishing French factory, that is Poonaketa. It is mentioned here as Poonaketa. Poona is outside, imported over Lalapete and Arthur. Anandaranga died in 1761 and was buried in 50. The Champu names also Madras as Chennapuri or Chennapatna. The Champu says Thiruvenkada moved from Perambur to Chennapatna. Similarly, when Thiruvenkada returned to Madras, it is mentioned as Chenna Kesavapura. Lot of mistakes are being made. First time Chennapatna is mentioned in 1640. Before that, the name of Chennapatna does not appear in any records. First time it is appearing in 1640. And that is not because of Chennapanaika or anything like that. It is wrongly believed because of Chenna Kesava Perumal temple. So that we must remember, because going back to the discussion of name of Madras. But Madras was existing even before Chennai was there. It says that when he was called back to Puducherry, Thiruvenkada took merchants to Chenna Kesavapura. So it was mentioned as Chenna Kesavapura. The common belief that Chennapatnam name came from the desire of one of the Nayaks to name the town after his ancestor is not true. If the name was there, it was after the ruling deity of Chenna Kesavapura. This Raghavan also agrees. He says Anandaranga Champu confirms this. Love also says that name was never there. From Raghavan's book you can see it is clearly mentioned as Chenna Puram, Chenna Pattanam. Here Chenna
Kesavapuram.
And here somewhere Chenna
Kesavapuraya.
Yeah, all over it is Chenna Kesavapura or Chenna Kesava, something like that. So this is what Champu talks about. Diaries of Anandaranga Pillai provides us a lot of information. Srinivasachari described Anandaranga Pillai as Samuel Pepys of French India. Samuel Pepys was supposed to be the biggest diarist who regularly maintained the diary. So Anandaranga Pillai is called Samuel Pepys of French India. On Anandaranga Pillai's death, diaries came into possession of his nephew Thiruvenkada Pillai, who maintained it as a serious account of his own till the beginning of 1770. He also continued to write. Subsequent generations of the family had discarded those records. They were completely gone. Nobody knew what happened. Then, the manuscript was recovered in a decrepit state by Gallo Monmouth, the mayor of Pondicherry and scholar of Oriental languages in 1846, who immediately set upon translating the manuscript to French. First it was translated to French. The existence of the diary was brought to the notice of Lieutenant General McLeod, the British consular agent in Pondicherry much later. At the direction of Lord Wenlock, the then governor of Madras, English translation of the diary from Monmouth's copy was adopted. It was the first time a copy was adopted. This was completed in 1896. A good friend of mine lives, this is the Dinapadi Sherry Kulku, he calls it Sosta Liginam. Much of it is also written in Telugu. Not only in Tamil, he writes also in Telugu. பிரத்யேகமான ஆனந்தரங்க பிள்ளை தினப்படி செய்தி குறிப்பு சொஸ்தலிங்கம் short notes. This is the third listing I got it from. So this is Ananda Ranga Pillai as seen from one of his portraits, from which I am showing some pages, but you need not see all those pages. I am just showing how well it is done. But in most places you will find 1700 அக்டோபர் மாசத்துக்கு அக்ஷய வருஷம் அப்பிசி மாசம் மங்களவாரம். Always he mentions a varam as Mangala, Guru, Soma, like that. He never mentions
Single survive.
So that is very important. Similarly, you can see here also, Itrayanal, it will always say Itrayanal Rati 10 Manikki. So when October, so and so, Akshaya Varsham, Atrish Masam. Like that, every page he mentions all these things. There are several pages are there. Sukya Varsham, Agi Masam. So 3 Srimukha, Angirasa and Rajotari, these were the 3 years of his diary not available in French translation. They were, in English translation, they were available in French always. 3 Srimukha, Angirasa and Rajotari. These 3 years were they were not available. So these were all the many pages of that, but I want you to see this particular page in which he mentioned about Madras. He says very clearly, ஆனால் இங்கிலீஷ்காரர் முன் இந்தியாவுக்கு வந்து சென்னை பட்டணத்தில் வந்து கொடி போட்ட 121 வருஷமும் 5 மாசத்திற்கு பிற்பாடு 125 வருஷம் 5 மாசத்துக்கு பிற்பாடு புறப்பட்ட பட்டணத்துக்கு இசைகேடு வந்து அட்சய வருஷம் புரட்டாசி மாதம் 9ஆம் தேதி புதவாரம் 1746 செப்டம்பர் 29. That's the day on which Ordnance bombarded Madras Fort and English occupied. And it was the capitulation of Madras to French by absolutely helpless. They were helpless. In fact, Raghavan wanted money also from them. And in this also you can see this, he says, very clearly he says, after the people go away, he mentions many places like Golconda, Visakhapatnam, Aakkadu, முதலான பட்டணங்களை அடித்து ஒரு சென்னை பட்டணம் ஆச்சு. இதெல்லாம் இப்போது தீவு நிவாரணங்களெல்லாம் 100-200 ஆதாயம் வந்து அவனவன் வெகு பணம் வந்து கையிலே சம்பாதித்து இப்போ விவாதங்கள் all that he said, and he said இன்னும் 20-30 வருஷம் செல்லாதபடி ஸ்வர்ணப்பட்டணம் ஆக மாட்டாது. சென்னை பட்டணம் cannot become ஸ்வர்ணப்பட்டணம் even in 20 years from now because French destroyed many. If you go to Fort, you will find black pillars, Unfortunately, the granite pillars are painted with the black and on the paint, our artistic, elitistic, our Kalapathangal Telugu மொழியில் எழுதப்பட்டுள்ளன. You can see here the whole page is written in Telugu. Many pages are in Telugu. He was well versed in Telugu as well as in Tamil. Ananda Ranga Pillai started recording the events from 1736 when he was 27 years old. He died in 1761. And his nephew Thiruvengara Pillai continued the diary up to 1770. 100 years later, only the diaries were discovered. In 1889, Julian Minchu of the School of Living Oriental Languages of Paris published a translation of a portion. His diaries, 9 volumes in Tamil and 12 volumes in English, stand foremost as records of history. But that is not all of Ananda Ranga Pillai. There were many portions which are left over. A good friend of mine in Marseille in France, I think you all have met him, Marseille Gopal, who has done a lot of research on this here in France. I think you met him also, no? So he came from Marseille in France in Gopal Krishna, later came across some portions of the diaries which were left out and published them after publishing a collection of second Veeranayakar diaries. The notes of Pillai 1751 to 1752 are also available now. Thus we have now these Tamil publications which are authentic historical records. In these also there are several notes in Telugu. Diaries in 1736. First, Monborn discovered in 1916. Then Yale in 1818 and 1884. Earlier they had taken it in to France, Anton got it in 1916. 1904 to 1928, copy brought to Madras. Rangachari and Price, they translated 4 volumes. Rangachari was also well known, who was in charge of Museum and all. Also, Gopalakrishna brought out 3 volumes of leftover portions in Prajapati, Angirasa, Srimukha, Ondigati. That is 1751-52, 1752-53, and 53-54. Many portions written in Telugu. These more portions are written in Telugu. And then there is one Anandaranga Pillai incoming. 400 pieces of poetry. This was run by Tyagaraja Desika. What do they say about Tyagaraja Desika? Isagarai Pol, Tamil Chokki Agare. Isagarai Pol. How Vyasa wrote Mahabharata, like that this man wrote this thing. Dasagaramana Kodukkovai, Kondu Sat Sangya Nalgi, Isagaran Media Ovade Nilayirukkum, Asarada Anandaranga. That's what the Varnanda Mandal made. The first poetry starts like Isagarai Pol Tamil Chokki Agare. How Vyasa did, Isagarai means Vyasa. How he wrote Mahabharata, like that he wrote in Tamil. Patrul Kovai Vaidyanatha Desikar Pularvar Sadasi Daithiravakam Yenna. Anandaranga Pillai Srinivasachari. He writes like this. Punangonda Manipuyene Pirambura. He calls it Pirambura. Pirambur Anandaranga Umbachella Unpakati Nambaru. Valanam Megarunayam Vidamgando. Eulogizing Kalthekando. That means we saw you as Lord Vishnu himself. Orombrota Manimada Vinisayil. Uyaldavu Puduvayan. Kalangando, Ninadu Nagi Kumangando. When we see your smiling face, we are so happy. That's what this Anandaranga Pillai Srinivasachari says. He waited Dhananjal. Now we will get whatever we want. We are supporting our. Now Arunachala and all of us know about Ramana Kirtana Siva, written by Arunachala. He wrote it. But what happened? He was in Pillai, born in Pillai, he was in Sririvadi, Arunachala, he is known as Ramana Kirtan, very said copy. Sririvadi, Kalapam, Sririvadi, Anandaranga Pillai, and all these things he has written. But what happened to his Ramanatagam? His Ramanatagam, he wrote and he wanted to launch it. He didn't have money. Somebody said, Tulji Maharaja of Tanjore is the best person, go to him, he is a great connoisseur. But at that time, Madar Malik has already taken over, taken over the Tanjore because of loans given, and the loans could not be paid, so Tanjore was given as sort of ransom to Madar Malik. So he was stopped. He says, now there is no point in going there. Tulji Maharaja is no more having any power. He said, where should I go? He said, go to Anandaranga Pillai. He is the right man who can launch and give you a lot of money also. Then he goes to Anandaranga. Anandaranga Pillai says, when Manali Muthukrishna Madaliyar is there in Madras, how can I do that? I am a very small man in front of him. You go there. So in taking this, he was told, you go to Sri Lanka and first submit this to Sri Lanka, and then this will be launched. And when he went there, Arunachala Pillai wrote the great song En Palli Pondicherry, which is sung in most churches. That he sang there. Immediately he was brought to Madras and he was presented to Manali Muthukrishna. Otherwise he would not have had a Ramanatagam. What he sang about Muthukrishna Mudali. Siddhi Tarigiravali Satya Vasakanathu Bhumandalavargal Vam Inganum Tunikkum Sagala Bhasha Nipuna. This is the most important thing. This is Sagala Bhasha Nipuna. What is the Bhasha? Manali Muthukrishna Chadra Nirvali. Chadra means Prabhu or big man. Sotpozil Arinthadu Solluve Kekkare Munayavade. I know very little. Whatever I know I am telling you. Please listen to me. And he was given, first of all he was asked, but I have already heard some very nice Ramanataka songs by two Brahmins, Kodandarama and Venkatana. He said, that is what I have written. Oh, then you say, I want to listen to you. Then he sings and he listens to you. Then he gives him what all he gave him. Ganam Dandan. Manali Muthukrishna gave to Ramanataka Pillai, Ganam Dandan, Kanaka பட்டாபிஷேகம் தந்தான், களங்கமில்லா கருப்பொருளை அழைத்து தந்தான், என்னை ராமாயண கவிஞன் என பேர் தந்தான். அனந்தன் தான், மணல் முத்துகிருஷ்ண பூபன் அகந்தன் தான், இருமையும் சுகந்தன் தானே. So you can see at that point of time how Madras was supporting this great thing. And then there was one Teperumal Chettiar, Lingapachet Kumar Teperumal Chettiar, he was also a great man. Manigonda Marvel, Lingappa Magi Balan, Lingappa son, Lingappa Magi Balan, Maginda Sudan Manima, Madigadiman, great merchant, Madigadiman. Vanji Padita Teperumal Magivan, though he was in Sanskrit, he also did a lot of that. And now, okay, these are all classical literature, but there were folklore. There were a lot of folklore songs, which also depicted the history of Madras. We will see some of them. There were several popular songs. In fact, there were many, but I have just taken for sample one or two. There were several popular songs and poems written on subjects of interest, though not grammatically correct. They give us an insight into the history of the place as observed by the common man. The historical importance of them cannot be overlooked. I keep on repeating, never overlook the historical importance of any little thing that you get. We just throw it away as an unworthy, but they have some historical importance. They were sold at very low price. In fact, they were all called Kalna Patabustam. Kalna Patabustam. Kalna is what person? Anand. Condemned by Pandits, they did not survive long. However, some of them are available. In fact, in Market earlier, in that corner, there used to be all these books available. I will go back. First flight in Madras, when it happened. The Hindu, February 15, 1911, Wednesday, reports like this. I have seen it myself. Pleasant to see Mr. John Tyke. Monsieur John Tyke is the name of the Frenchman who flew the first plane in Madras. He started the plane against the wishes of the manager and mechanics, and 8 men held the plane till its engine. That is inside the fort. What you see as the parade ground, in that place the plane was flown. And they held the plane tight, and when the engine was fully running, they let go and the plane will fly. And the airplane was followed closely by wheels of Addison and Co. in the R A Johnson car, for one of the earliest cars for R A Johnson car. But that is not the thing. This is the plane. As you know, I have found out one of the planes and given to the history. That is a different story. This is the machine which our Monsieur John Tyke flew in Madras. You can see this is all canvas, plywood, and engine inside, and one big curtain in front. The propeller was attached to a crankcase, and the crankshaft was set. All the engineers will be laughing, but that was the way the engine was run. Crankshaft was held, and crankcase used to rotate. Male Bharat motor cars. Before this, there is a Sindhu available, Kalana cars, Kalana part of the Sudai Munishan Pondicherry 1913, and Paisa Kalana. What does he say? This is very important. I am telling you, don't laugh at the point, but look at the historical importance. Paripula Durema Kamsham in English, Pachamai, Man, Jules Type, the same man, Monsieur Type. Then Sarila motor car. Sarila motor car which doesn't have wheels. Sarila motor car. He calls it motor car. தானவர் பறக்கச் செய்த கலரேணி உலோகருக்கான காட்டினேன் சிந்தாகத்தால் புலவர்கள் மனமுறுக்க பொறுப்பதன் தொழில்பேன். Even here, Poruka itself is wrong in a grammar, that Narate is used, but doesn't matter. And he tells his people, Kanneni Varai Parakku Motarkari Penneni Varai. Veda யுகத்தில் ராமன் கூடிய சண்டைகள் செய்தார். கீழிருந்த அனுமானம் வரை தூக்கி நின்றார். ஏறும் அந்தரமாய் என்று சண்டை செய்யாவிட்டார். சப்படி இருக்கிறது. இப்போது அந்தரமாய் வண்டி ஓட்டி காண வைத்தார். பறக்கும் மோட்டார்காரை பார்த்தாவே உன்னை பெண்ணே, பட்சி போல் உருவமும் தோற்றுகிறது கண்ணே. இது பட்சி மாதிரி இருக்கலாம். But see the next line, still விசிறி போல் தலையுறவும் வைத்தாரே அது முன்னே. விசிறி போல் தலையுறவும் வைத்தார் முன்னே. Third line is still funny. வேண்டி இன்ஜினும் வயிற்றிலே வைத்தார்கள். But the engine they put in the stomach of this model car. This is the Sindhu available, but it has a historical importance. We just discharge them as nothing actually. And similarly, the poet
Just go back 2 pages. The one more page back. One page back. Chulai Munusami Mudaliya.
Chulai Munusami Mudaliya கேட்டு modules like name comes there. உலகத்தில் பணம் கொடுத்து கொடுப்பதன் சொல்லிட்டேன். I know I am not writing good poetry. Please follow the excuse me. Now it's a reason. So the most important thing was the last 2 lines which amused me so much. Visibo Telugu Kaitariya Hindi is right. And similarly when Ananda Ranga in Madras, we at that time a poet for living, he had to praise the British because the ruling party had to be praised. So this particular poet, he praises the Englishmen as though they were greatly, really they cannot be defeated by anybody. Then attack Madras, after this are the original pictures available of the 1908 about the one van was slightly damaged, one ship was damaged, and one barge was totally destroyed. This was all the damages that occurred, not much. Only one man died. And this man writes his poem. Chennapattanattil German Kadalkarai, you can see all the Tamil is so bad, Kadalkarai is it. Undide Arabika, British Senegal, they never went, this is all bluff. Chennai, Senegal saying, James Royal reporting that the end of the Gundaladi actually they never did all those things. They did the earth matter long before they saw you. What does he say? Vijayagam now Sabha இப்பொழுது விஜயபுரம் பள்ளிவாசத்தில் வந்திருக்கும் முகமது காசிம் ராவுத்தர் அவர்கள் முயற்சி அச்சிடப்பட்டது. இதுவரை பைசா அரையணம் கொடிமுழங்கும் இங்கிலீஷின் மகுடம் வாழ. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஆஃப் ஆல் தி பிரைசஸ் கொடிமுழங்கும் இங்கிலீஷின் மகுடம் வாழ. கீர்த்தி பெற்ற செங்கோலும் டைத்து வாழ. முடிவணங்கி சித்திரரசன் முறைகள் சொல்ல. உல்லாச குடிவழங்கை உலகத்தெல்லாம் ஆல் தி யூலாஜி ஜஸ்ட் லைக் அவர் கல்வெட்டுகள். படிவாரியாய் நடுவாது குடிகள் தன்னை பக்குவமாய் ஆதரிக்கும்
common English.
இடிமுழக்கும் தெய்வுடனே யுத்தம் செய்யும் என்னென்னம் என்ன ஒன்றா
வல்லபத்தை
இவர்களுடைய வல்லபத்தை கொஞ்சம் So this here you will see 2-3 things really amused me. 2-3 things. புகழ் பெற்ற துறைவர் வீட்டிலே வந்து வீட்டிட்ட குண்டு அணியினால் சீர்வர் வீட்டில் துணைவன் கடவுளை செய்த நபியினால் சேரவில்லை. Udu fell there, but there was no Sarah because he is a great man. Binny and Govin, you know what is Binny and Govin? Binny and Co.
Oh, okay. Binny and Co.
Binny and Govin will do the Binny. They will put the logo touch to very a hole, that's all, nothing else happened. Indian than the British in Manati, Echo, they were Sahayan. General and post office, actually it is general post office.
General and
post office, building the CFL, Gandhi office, கனகரிமாக ஒரு புது வெட்டிக்கிறார். கட்டடத்தில் துளை பொறுப்பமிருப்பார். கடற்கரை உள்ள ஒரு கிட்டங்கி தட் இஸ் கோடம். கிட்டங்கி இஸ் கோடம். காணும் போர்ட் ஆஃபீஸ் கூரைகள். போர்ட் ஆஃபீஸ் ஹார்பர் ஆஃபீஸ். போர்ட் ஆஃபீஸ் கூரைகள் கடவுள சத்தமாய் கொண்டு வைத்திருக்கிற சாத்விக் கூரை கொஞ்சம் பட்டியது. மண்ணெண்ணெய் டேங்கில் காவல் இருக்கிறோம். ஏழையா ஒருவருமே மண்ணுலகை விட்டு விண்ணுலகம் சென்றார். மற்ற மரணங்கள் போனார். ஒரே ஒரு சின்ன ரயில் என்னும் தென்னிந்தியாவுக்கு சீரான கேரேஜ் பீச்சிலே இருக்க முன்னே விழுந்திர குண்டுமலர் பேர் மூலையில் கொஞ்சம் எரிந்தது என்றார். சிங்கத்திடம் பூனை பந்தயங்கள் பேசி சீரகத்தை ஈசன் மேல் பாடினது போல பங்கமில்லாதுரை இங்கிலீஷ் படை குற்றும் பார்த்தால் வீடுகளும் ஜெர்மன் ஆலோசனைகளும் செய்வது ஒன்றில்லை. அல்லோரும் ஒன்றாக செயல் அல்லோரும் எல்லோரும் ஆலோகமாகிய நந்தம் இங்கிலீஷ் ஜடலமேந்தம் நாம் செய்ய வேண்டும். விக்குத்தி சித்தமும் கொண்டாடும் புண்ணிய சீர்கேட்டு வாய்ந்தனும் ராஜருக்கு பக்குவமாக நாம் சண்டைக்கு உபகாரம் பண்ணாமல் போனால் நரகம் தான். Thank you, gentlemen. With this, I close my speech of this evening.
This labor of love. Labor of love
Has to be done because Professor Swaminathan always puts me in trouble. Where is he? Swaminathan. He's Indian from all kind of.
Concept of Sadas. Sadas வந்து அதுக்கு முன்னாடி வருது.
எது?
Sadas.
Sadas was there in
முன்னாடி வருது. Probably that is the origin of the argumentative Indian.
Yeah, no, that is true. Of course, today's argument is different because as somebody from America said that even in our refugee times now and all, we make such a lot of noise, we never discuss, we only argue. And the angel argues much more than others, you know, never let's say others speak also. Unfortunately, it was. But Tiruvatiru, according to the inscription available there, even as early as 8th century and all that, there were sadhas held there. And Sanskrit Pandits came from north to conduct discussions there. So there is a mandapam there. Even today that mandapam is there. I was only telling about Professor Pondicherry because he was the one who puts me into all kind of trouble. So when he asked me, I must thank him also because he gave me the opportunity to go into it. Actually, Nandini Ramani said she would come, but unfortunately she couldn't make it after Raghavan's daughter. She helped me a lot in doing all these documents here, whatever I have. I got it from Nandini Ramani. And in fact, a lot of thanks to that. And Dr. Mamta is here. She has helped me with so please set up, everybody see who is who. Dr. Mamta, the professor of Sanskrit, and Dr. Dash is the head of Sanskrit department in University of Madras, and they helped me a lot of them. And in fact, I wanted to say, he reminded me also, Dr. Mamta and her husband, Dr. Dash, to come to the library, which is actually a treasury, which is, I don't think we all know what we have. Actually, we don't know what we have. Like, you know, I always remind of a young wife of a naval officer once said that I never knew my husband drank till I saw him sober one day. Like that. We never knew all these things existed since we saw this little library tucked away in Gandhinagar in one of the streets in one flat. I tell you, it is just disbelief, you know, you have to go and see the amount of books and the number of volumes that Pepys Sharma collected over this life period. They are all looked after by Dr. Mamta and this thing.
And Pepys Sharma himself is an extraordinary scholar, not recognized. And Pepys Sharma.
Who's the Pepys Sharma? He is from Kerala, but actually he started this thing and he is the one who helped the Adayar library to put up all his Sanskrit literature. And he was in Punjab University. In fact, he got his, he was appointed there for a long time. And he got also Padma Bhushan, I think, no? No, not that. No. Yeah, he's President's Award for Award. So, Mr.
About Pondicherry and Pondicherry,
Yeah.
I can't resist the temptation to share a story with you.
About Pondicherry becoming Pondicherry, I share the story which I heard from Dr. Raghavan. When it changed hands between the French and the English number of times. And I remember finally one of our class copied the name. Pondicherry, the principal was P-O-U-D-I-C-H-E-R-R-I, Pondicherry. The U looks like an M.
That's what how it has done.
Yeah.
Like Pandara Road is very good here. Pandara Road has become Pandara Road. Kushwant Singh has certified that.
ஏ அது ரொம்ப இழுக்காது இது
This is like a two-part question. One is a lot of the sources which were quoted, they were from Sanskrit. A lot of the questions here, sources here quoted were from Sanskrit. So it kind of gives the idea that the people were talking and were written in scholarly. But at the same time, the proportion, you will find learned people who write in Tamil as well. So that is one part of the question. The second one, what would the chronology between the English and the indigenous sources be? Because could the indigenous sources be seen as like a response to what the English had been writing about their life in South India and Madras?
See, chronology, because of chronology, if you take, you can go back to 3rd century BC. All are recorded only in Sangha Yajna itself, everything is recorded. and everything is recorded except 3 centuries of Gallagher's Interregnum. During which centuries we don't have any much of available inscription. But inscriptions are plenty from 3rd century BC we have. So historical recording is the question about which way it was conversion, which language it was talked about is something which nobody can straight away say. Because as Professor Swaminathan would tell you, most of those inscriptions before, say, starting of this common era, were all in Tamil Brahmi. The same like Ashoka Brahmi in north, it was Tamil Brahmi here, and later it was in Grantha, and much later in Tamil. And most of the research work which Professor Swaminathan has done about Pallavas, they were all in either Pallava Grantha or Sanskrit. So they were all there, and slowly went on till, as I told you then, 15th century is the turning point in our history, when the whole thing changed. As I said, when Vasco da Gama landed in Kozhikode, the world was never the same again after that. It all changed. We lost all our, we didn't know. In fact, that is the one which troubles me as to why we succumbed to the people who came as traders. Do you know, Kogan and Day came in 2 little boats, pinnaces, in Navy what you call pinnaces, or boats at 80 feet size, not more than that. They came in 2. They didn't come blowing their trumpet. They did not have even a musket to fire. Kogan and Day, they landed. They set up a trading center. And we gave the country to them. They did not take it. Gun was, one thing, gun was brought, gun was known. Even the earlier gun was known. In fact, earlier times also guns were known. In fact, why 3 mile distance was given for international line, countries line for sea, was because a cannon could fire only 3 miles range. So they made it as 3 miles of the national border for sea. So that is immaterial. But what I am saying is, how we encountered a people who came to trade with us and made them our superior by our stupidity, not by their great things, anything at all. That is the important thing we must understand.
The acquired rule. The acquired
Yes, please.
Agasthi's temple.
Not Agasthiswara temple in Nungambakam. Is that?
And this Chennam, there's a temple.
My first question was Agasthiswara temple, which was located in Nungambakam. Nungambakam covered the present T-Nagar also.
That is not the temple.
Oh, there is another Agasthiswara. There is another Agasthiswara.
Very recent. Yes, that must be the one. The Nungambakam Agasthiswara temple, where is it? Which is the one? It's there, off Village Road. Okay. That is a very recent one, that's what.
Agastya code.
That's Agatyar code.
There was no He's talking about Mambalam. You know what is the name of Mambalam from? Maha Bilva Kshetra. There was a huge Bilva tree, and there was a civil, there was no T-Nagar. It was called Mambalam. Then it was divided to East Mambalam and West Mambalam. East Mambalam became T-Nagar. After Piti Jagaraja came into
You had a question.
this
You had a question.
But Maha Bilva Kshetra, because there was a huge Bilva tree. And Nungambakam long time was there, which was
Chennakeswara temple predates
predates what, you know. It is like calling which came first, egg or hen, you know, because this is the same story. Because
Ordinary.
everybody says Chennapatnam, now parties in power named it Chennapatnam without even knowing what is the background of it. That is a different story. But Chenna Kesava Perumal temple was there, written as Chenna Kesava Perumal in Dr. Pine's listing in 1640. But 1639 document records it as Madras, not Chennapatnam. So 1 year before that. And Chenna Kesava Perumal may be the reason for it, because after Damodara who gave away Madras to this people to pray, came Rangaraya, whose gold leaf document, he also made a document in gold leaf that was available in Calcutta Museum, which was lost a little later. He mentions specifically this town should be named as Rangarayapatnam. But he was defeated by the Gorgondarava, and he was also caught in the mud. So if we see, there is nothing there.
It's also called Patnam Gold. It's also called Patnam Gold.
There is so many things are there. You see, that is all Patnam means any part there. Anyway, thank you all very much. That's all. It's a question of knowing what. Thank you very much once again. And I want to thank Professor Swaminathan, Badri, Gorpu and all friends here who made it possible, Kannan who gave beautiful introduction. All of you, thank you very much. Thank you.
Go. 1 second.
Whenever Mr. Narasiah, who is himself a Nadi Viveki, comes to speak at Takar Baba Vidyalaya or any forum, then that Sabha becomes a Sarvadeva Vilasa. So we are delighted to have him, sir. Sadas is conducted.
And he is a mobile library.
Huh?
Mobile library.
He is a walking library, absolutely. He is a scholar par excellence. I remember him talking about Alavai Nagari, which is a book he wrote about Madurai a few years back. And he finished that talk with a poem about Madras written by Ellis, Francis White Ellis. Ellis had inscribed this poem in one of the temples that he built. Actually, in several temples he built some wells. And the entire poem, which is published in Madras actually, he mentioned that because he rediscovered that lost inscription in Madurai, Thirumalai Nayak Mahal, was lying in some corner. He polished it and gave it, and now it's on display. And that poem also beautifully described, Madras as Gunakadan Mudalai Kodakadan Varayil Aadiyil Kidaitha. Beautiful description of Madras. Madras may not be that beautiful. Madras is Aadiyil Kidaitha Adahuru Mamadi. Aadiyil Kidaitha means Kadal Adaputha Adahuru Mamadi. Beautiful gem on the seashore. And an Englishman had to come up with this. Because no Tamil has come up with a description of Madras that beautiful. He discovered that. Today he finished the engine on the There is just a delight to see something from somewhere. Vinny and Kovum. Vinny and Kovum.
Somebody will think it's a temple, not a temple. Vinny and Kovil.
Vinny and Kovil. Vinny and Kovil. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing where he finds all this kind of research and this kind of information. I think you should update Madrasapatnam with a lot of new information that you have discovered very recently, sir.
You must go back to Madras.
Right.
Since the area
before continuing, we are not Mudali, we are not Anandaranga Pillai, we are not, unfortunately we are not in the Dubashi state where we are completely indebted and we have to give. But I would like Professor Swaminathan on our behalf to give Mr. Narasiah token of affection. That we can. It's a very small token for appreciation. The best way you can honor a person like that is to read his books and compliment him and interact with him. And he talked about the K.V. Sharma library. Actually, I had the privilege of, I narrate this because it's a personal incident. I had the privilege of accompanying him to the U.S. Swaminathan library, which I heard of, but I didn't know where it is. Most people in Madras have heard of it, but have not known it. He took me along for a small trip about 2 months back in November. And as soon as we entered that library, he became a 5-year-old child. Seriously. It was, And Uvai Swaminathan library delayed, the Narasiah delay started inflicting me. It was a totally delightful experience. Because you showed me a poem that Tagore wrote. We saw about this comparison of Vyasar and the Arunachala Kavirayar and all that stuff. Tagore, which most of us perhaps don't know, Rabindranath Tagore has written a poem on Uvai Swaminathan, praising him as the Agastya of the modern day Agastya for having rediscovered all the old.
And this poem is in Bengali.
The poem is in Bengali. Poem is in Bengali. Beautiful poem. Silapati Garata Nupura Kata being fully edited. Sinupurana Silambuna Sanskrit. Nupura Kata being beautiful discussion. So I wrote about it, I saw it, and I blogged about it. Our Kanaya in the Masa edited. Listen, the Masa February issue of Kanaya is done an article about it. He's writing several articles on all kinds of magazines. Times so the boat either on blog but on our friend Tagore Utter, Uvesa Utter. Narasiah Pati is one of the So it was my delight that Mr. Narasiah, I hope he comes. Mr. Narasiah should become an annual speaker at this forum. Or perhaps biannual speaker here, twice annual speaker at this forum because they have a wonderful audience every time he comes. That's it. So thank you very much. Next month, B.K. Hari. B.K. Hari, historical drama, English, where he is trying to trace Rama as a historical character with the dates, times, etc. There are some researchers in this, and he is quoting that. Whether you want to consider Rama as a mythological character, as a god, or as a person in history, you can come next month, first Saturday, same time, 5:30 p.m. You can listen to him and you can argue with him. We hope it will be an engaging session next month, same place. Thank you.
Vande